So on the subject of interviews and CVs, I'm hoping this video is going to be a short one, bullet pointed, with an idea of just helping you to drill more further into each bullet point on your own to avoid making the video longer than it's supposed to be. I think we can all agree that in your absence, the only thing that's representing you, being your mouthpiece, is your CV. So needless to say, it needs to be succinct, it needs to be catchy, and not too long. It's generally thought that 2 pages of your CV is adequate to sell you. As you can imagine, it's quite a daunting task. No one has the time to go through a 5-page CV, no matter how exciting or how interesting it is. Find a way to minimize it to a maximum rather of 2 pages. Create a personal profile, a catchy personal profile or personal statement that also makes reference to some of the words that are mentioned in the job specification, just to make the recruiters aware that you are responding directly to what they have asked for. You're not just having this old CV that's not relevant to what they're looking for. So use some of the words that appear in the job specification to use in your personal statement. So that makes you to already stand out because you're using the same language as them. Obviously not verbatim, but be smart about it. I find that our CVs are made longer than they should be oftentimes by things such as references, which is something you can actually reduce to 2 lines by saying references available on request. If you need a reference, it's available on request. So it kind of, not only does it make your CV shorter, but it also buys you time when it comes to the interview process. One, it kind of guides you where the interview process is. When they contact you to say, can we have your references? You know that you've made it to round 2 or round 3 of the interview, and they're at a stage where they're looking to reference, as well as buying you time to make sure that you give the correct people's details and phone numbers. Sometimes people move around. You might put a reference today, and 3 months down the line, the person has left and your process is not complete. Sometimes the person is not there, but they are no longer on their old number. So you're needing to again update your reference, your recruiter or your employer to say, oh, listen, my reference details have changed. I have new contact details to give you. So it kind of spares you all that hassle and makes you come across as a much more organized person who is giving current. And you even have time to go and give your your contact person, the heads up to say, listen, I will be giving your name to such and such an agency. They will contact you with regards to my reference. And then that way things are staying fresh and nobody's having to kind of recall who you are when they call them up for a reference and having to struggle to remember who you are actually, just because you've not spoken in such a long time and they deal with a whole lot of other people. So consider doing that for your CV. This could well be the time now for the interview aspect of things, where you could start familiarizing yourself with what open-ended questions are and what closed-ended questions are, and start practicing and rehearsing. There is just so much information and resources online that you could just familiarize yourself with these kind of things before you meet them at the interview. This is also the time when you to also familiarize yourself with thinking about examples, as many examples as possible, applicable to your role, applicable to your job, and start formulating examples in your head as to every question that you anticipate. Make giving an example part of your answer, as it kind of validates and adds more flesh to your answers typically. So make it a habit that you will follow up your responses with examples as much as possible. Along all of these above mentioned factors, also get into the habit of practicing. Just practice. Sit in front of a mirror, practice, and not just in your head, because for all of us, many a times when we speak in our heads, everything sounds so logical and so perfect until we're having to say it out loud. And then you realize just how many times you have to say it to get it right. So interviews are no different, especially because they bring with them a degree of stress. For many of us, we're not in interviews every day. It's a very unfamiliar territory. And again, because the stakes are so high and there's so much at stake and you desperately want this job, chances are we do get stressed naturally, especially where it involves speaking in front of people you're not familiar with, being pressed for answers, and the desire to be accepted for the job brings on the stress. So by practicing one in front of the mirror out loud, silly as it might sound, it doesn't have to be a mirror. We now have phones. You can start practicing on your phone. It is not unheard of. A lot of good speakers do that. Many a good speaker rehearse in front of a mirror. They listen to themselves, they record themselves and listen to themselves backwards and see what mannerisms they do, what they can avoid, and what they can improve in future. As well as this, you could also enlist the help of a trusted friend, your partner, your colleague, or somebody that you trust to actually interview you and see how you fare in the early stages so that you get used to this kind of setup and you're not completely thrown out of water, out of your comfort zone, as it were, come the day of your big day of your interview. So on the subject of stress and how to manage stress during an interview, I'd like to also say, look into ways of how to manage stress, be it breathing exercises, be it deep breathing. These are very little things that help so much, or even a short meditation session before you go onto that live interview helps a lot. Have a glass of water with you, especially because you don't know how long the interview is going to last for. And most of our interviews are done virtually. In the past, it was quite common to be offered a glass of water if you're going for a live interview. So now that is virtual, keep yourself a glass of water there. When you get thirsty or when you feel like the nerves are taking over you, have a sip of your water. Or even it buys you time as you sip to be thinking of an answer, especially after a question. I remember with my last interview, which was about a year or so ago, it was a panel of 3 people. There was a lot of talking between us. It was a virtual interview. I had brought a drink with me, although it was out of the camera completely because I didn't know if I was going to choke or if I was going to be thirsty or whatever the case might be. I didn't have to touch the water, the drink, until the third interviewer came on. When it was her turn to interview me, she offered me a drink. She told me I could have a drink, at which point I lifted my glass to drink. But because it wasn't water that I had, on that particular day, I had made myself a hibiscus tea. I love herbal tea, so I'd made myself hibiscus tea. And if anybody knows hibiscus, it's quite red. It was iced tea, red, in a glass. So at that point, I had to declare outright, like, listen, I am not drinking during the interview. You must be thinking I'm so stressed. I'm even having a glass of wine during the interview. And it was quite a nice joke and a nice icebreaker. But I'm not suggesting you do that. But all I'm saying is have a drink ready. Luckily, when they said that, it didn't mean that I had to stand up. The drink was there, but out of camera. So yes, it's necessary to have a drink there. Sometimes you just choke just because of nerves. It's necessary to just relieve yourself and calm yourself down by having a drink, not a stiff one, obviously. And hence I had to declare and not leave people wondering whether that was wine or what was I drinking. I just had to come out right because they were quite curious to know, so what is it? And it was just a big joke. But at the end of the day, yeah, I had come out right. Bottom line is have something to drink at the interview. So now that they've seen you on paper and liked you so much so that they've invited you for an interview, that first impression is going to count. Make a lasting first impression. How do you do that? First of all, by the appearance, how you look before you speak. There is so much about you that's already speaking before you even open your mouth. So take every interview quite seriously. Take it formal. Treat it as a formal thing. Be on time, be punctual, look presentable, look well groomed. There is never a time when somebody could say you were too formal for an interview. So try to make sure that you don't wear anything that's going to distract from you, them focusing on you rather than focusing on the thing, be it your hairstyle, your makeup. Just try to be professional, look decent, everything in modesty, and look, even the clothes that you're wearing should not be overpowering and just letting you blend or shrink into the background, and they're taking over the whole focus of the interview. So yes, punctuality, presentation, before you even open your mouth. These things have already spoken volumes. So yes, I hope we are still together. At this point, can I ask you to subscribe, to share the video, to like, and to comment below. I'm even surprised you've not subscribed up to this point. Thank you so much for your support. And if you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much for your support. If you're new to the channel, I'm Daphne Chabalala, a South African based in London, UK, concerned with matters of how to come to the UK as a healthcare worker, as a student, as a graduate, life in the UK, how to fast track your financial goals, as well as health and wellness matters. It's content that you will find on this channel as it grows, as we evolve together on the cusp. We also call this channel On the Cusp with Daphne. So remain on the cusp as we evolve together. So in the interest of not making this video too long, there will be a part B to this video that talks about the actual interview process. We have covered the basics of the interview preparation. Thank you so much for staying tuned and staying with me right till the end.